started this morning? Yeah, welcome to First Baptist Oakboro. If you're joining us online, welcome as well. It's my privilege to serve here as pastor. I want you to know that you're in the midst of the people with whom you can connect as I believe you're doing to grow in Christ and reach out for His kingdom. So just to know that, I want you to know you're in a place where we're going to worship the Lord this morning. So thank you for being here. A couple of things to know as we get rolling this morning. You see many of them there up overhead. I'll say for our slides and everything this morning, we are trial running some new presentation software, both online and also in here. One program makes it a little easier, kind of all the back end stuff you don't see, but if you see things go a little haywire, it's because it's new software. We're learning on the fly. We have terrific folks on our sound and audio team, video team, and I'm putting them to the test this morning by throwing new stuff at them when they walk in the door. They are terrific folks working really hard to do stuff, to make stuff run smoothly, so big thanks to them, all of them. The other things coming up here, coming August 25th, we are starting dinners back up. It's Wednesday, August 25th, we are firing dinners back up. We're building a rotation of dinner teams again. We're going to celebrate back to school. That'll be the first Wednesday once school started back up. We are also going to have our first choir rehearsal that evening. So if you are in choir, if you've been in choir, if you want to be in choir, we're going to start our first choir rehearsal that evening as well, after Bible study, and all kind of back to everything back to its normal time and place. So that's all coming August 25th, so make sure to mark your calendars for that. That would be a fun evening. The Saturday before then, August 21st, we're going to start that morning with a prayer walk up at the STEM school. We're just praying not just for Oakboro School, but certainly for them, but also the whole district and schools kind of all over the place as we get that all back up and running here. Some already, some in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a wild adventure and just needs lots of prayer. So we're going to be doing that start at 8 o'clock that morning there, and then we will move back over here by 9 and do some work around on this campus and that building. There's a couple of outside things just to get it kind of cleaned back up in the summer. Getting fully back and functional in the building over there with all of our rooms each week. So looking forward to that. That'll be August 21st, that Saturday before school starts. Of course, our annual conference today, right after the service. So if you are a part of that, being a part of that, you can hang around a bit. It won't take us long, and you'll still be home way before noon. Right? This is going to be a new thing for annual conference. Home before noon for everybody. Still, even with it happening. So one of the nice things about meeting at 10 o'clock instead of 9. But we're going to worship this morning. We've got some great music for you this morning. We're going to dig into the scriptures together this morning. We're going to pray together this morning. We're going to experience the Lord. So I am glad you are here with us as we do that. Let's pray together. Father, we are grateful and glad we can gather together in person and line, gather together to give you worship, to experience your presence. So our prayer this morning is that we will do just that. That we will experience you. We will know you in this place. We will know you in the words that are spoken, the songs that are sung, smiles from the people around us, as we together seek to become more fully than you've made us to be. Shape us because of what happens over the next hour or so that we can, as a community, transform our community beyond. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Oakboro First Baptist. A beautiful day outside and a beautiful day inside the house of the Lord. Thank you all for joining us. And it's good to be back. I missed you guys for the last couple of weeks, so it's good to be back with you and worship. And it's good to see all of you back together again. I was not here last Sunday for our first Sunday back together, so what a great day to see everybody back together again. Special thanks to Sonia and Diane and Darla for filling in my absence. Thank you guys so much. I watched you online, and you guys did great, so thank you so much for filling in my absence. Today we are talking about how to be strong Christian homes and how to be strong families in Christ, and so we have a couple songs that fit right along with that message. So if you would, please stand as we sing God Give Us Christian Homes. Please continue to stand for one of my favorites, Just a Closer Walk with Me. Thank you, Mason.
At this point, I would invite all the elementary students to come down and join me on the mats. It's time for our elementary student devotion. And this morning, I am excited about what we're going to be talking about this morning. So here's what we're going to do. All right, first off, I have a pair of these. What are these? So these are not my pair, but they're kind of similar in that they're prescription, right? Does that look weird? Does anybody want to try them on and see how they look? All right, Jack, you can try them on. Show the whole church what we look like with glasses on. Can you see anything? No, you can put that on. Yeah, those are like real glasses, aren't they? Anybody else want to try them on? Let us try them on. Let us try them on. Can you see anything else? No, she can't see anything. Riley, want to try them on? Riley's good. All right, let me see the glasses. Riley's good. Let me see the glasses. Riley knows better. Riley's like, oh man. So, did y'all? It's a little weird. It's a little funky. Because I have, can anybody guess what I already have in my eyeballs? Contacts, exactly. So boys and girls, I have a pair of these. But the thing is, I don't usually wear these except for where do you think? Where do you think I only wear my glasses? At home, exactly. Good job, Jack. So like the only time you're going to see me wear glasses is when I take my contacts out and put on my glasses. Because what am I about to do? What do you think I'm about to do in a couple hours? Well, I can read my Bible with the contacts on. Actually, I prefer to read with my contacts on because sometimes if I wear my glasses too long, I can get a headache. But the thing is, what do you think I'm about to do when I put my glasses on? Well, no, that's for other people, not reading. What do we do each night? Remember, I pray, of course. What do you think I do? What do you think I can't do with these contacts in? Any adults know? Go to sleep. You can't go to sleep with your contacts in. So boys and girls, what are some of the things, that's what we're talking about today. Only time you're ever going to see me wear my glasses is chances are at home. What are some other things? Remember, only time I'm going to wear my glasses is at home. What are some other things that you do only at home? You're not in school. If you're homeschooled, you're not in school. It's only when school is over. You're only at the house. What are some things that you only do, Jack? What? Well, you only do it at home. Only do it at home. What do you do? Ride your dirt bike. All right, only do that at home. What else? You only do these things at home. What else, Jackson? Legos. Only, no, you can't do those at school, can you? Or rather, you only do it at home. Only play with Nerf guns at home, right? What about things that we have to do? What? You have to read. Well, you read at school too, don't you? So, yeah, what are some things you only do at home? Any of y'all take showers at school? No. Any of y'all brush your teeth at school? No. Any of y'all sleep at school? No. Don't lie. Jack said yes, he's honest. Sorry, parents, grandparents. So, we have a lot of things that we only do at home, right? But the thing is, the next question, are there a few things that change with our emotions and how we act at home? Do we act differently at home? How do we act differently? We're more what? Lazy. We're more lazy at home. I mean, it's not wrong. We are a little more lazy at home. What else? Sometimes she fights with her brother at home. Doing it a little bit right now. What else? What, Jackson? Have more fun at home. Are you more relaxed at home? Yes. Are you more comfortable at home? You normally sit on the couch. Exactly. So boys and girls, what we're going to talk about this morning is the difference between being kind of here at home versus out and about. So Pastor Jonathan came up with this idea. He's going to do it during his sermon too. So yeah, I'm not going to play the echo. But here's the problem though, right? Not a problem, but here's what it's like. When we're out and about, when we're like at school, when we're at the park, when we're at a friend's house, when it comes to our faith, right, we're trying to hold the egg a little bit more tightly. We're trying to hold the egg a little bit more comfortably. Why? Because we don't want what? We don't want the egg to break. But once we get to the house, we get a little bit more what? Jackson, you said it. You sit on the what? You get a little bit more lazy. So when we're at the house, you can start to do what? Play a little more, and the egg, you're not as careful with the egg anymore, right? Right? This is back in the way a little more. Throw it on the floor, that would make a mess. But when we get to the house, though, boys and girls, a lot of times we're not as what? With our egg. Careful. What's another word we could use for careful that rhymes with careful? Gentle. Riley said it. A lot of times we're not as gentle with the egg. The thing is, gentleness. Is gentleness the same? What's the opposite of gentleness, you think? What do you think? Opposite of gentle. Not being careful. Yeah, that's a good one. See, a lot of times some people think the opposite of gentle is being strong, right? But is that really the case? No, of course not. Because I'm being really strong with this egg right now, right? I'm being gentle with it. Exactly. If I'm like regular strong with this egg, if I'm like regular strong with this egg, what's going to happen? If I'm like, I'm going to be really strong with this egg, what's going to happen? Strong. Oh, no, my hand is, it's creating a mess, it's everywhere. No, you can't eat it, Max. It got on my shoe. Oh, no. That's okay, we couldn't go. They were expensive shoes, not anymore. So, boys and girls, here's what we're going to talk about today. When we live our lives as a Christian, right? A lot of times when we're outside the house, we're like this egg. We're very careful about how we act. We're very gentle about how we act. We strive to do the best, do what Jesus wants us to do, right? But a lot of times, once we get home, it changes sometimes, right? We're a little bit more lazy, a little more uncareful. And a lot of times, the chance of breaking the egg or not living like our faith shows us, I think we have a higher chance of breaking the egg, don't we, when we're not gentle with it. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Here's what I want you to be thinking about. We're going to be talking about from the Bible, Jax. You're going to read it in just a sec after I pray. What we're going to do is that we're going to be talking about how when we get home, when we are around the people with whom we're most comfortable, when we're around the people that we love inside of our homes, a lot of times our faith, we don't act the same at home as when we do when we're being gentle around everyone else. So boys and girls, here's what I want you to think of. Here's what I want you to ask yourself. Any other questions about this? Come find me after the service. Is that, are you living out your faith? Do you want to be a Christian the same as when you're out and about, at school, at a friend's house? The same as when you're at home. And if you are not a Christian yet, that's okay. We can talk about what that means too. But that's what we're talking about today in the sermon. That's what I want you to remember. The gentleness, just like with an egg, matters when we're at home and when we're not at home. Does that make sense? Can I pray and ask God to help us with that? God, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love. I ask that you would allow us to be gentle, to live out our faith, to stand strong in our faith, both in the home and when we're out of the home. That there would be no difference between the two. God, that's hard. I ask that you would give us help with that. I pray that there's a boy or girl or an adult in here today that doesn't know you, because that's impossible to live out unless they have a relationship with you. God, I ask that you would help us with that. If there's someone here that doesn't have that relationship, can't get that help, that you would show them that, and that they can start a relationship with you today. Thank you for your love. Thank you for who you are. I pray this in your precious and holy and wonderful name. Amen.
These verses come from 1 Peter chapter 3, 1, 2, and 7. Wives, follow the lead of your own husbands. Suppose some of them don't believe God's word, then let them be won to Christ without words of seeing how their wives behave. Let them see how pure you are. Let them see that your lives are full of respect for God. Husbands, consider the needs of your wives. They are weaker than you, so treat them with respect. Honor them as those who will share with you the gracious gift of life. Then nothing will stand in the way of your prayers.
I was
Our congregational hymn today is one that you may not be familiar with. I was actually not familiar with it, and just looking for some special hymns this week, I was reading the lyrics, and I was really struck by the lyrics. It's called the Family Prayer Song. It says, "Come and fill our homes with your presence. You alone are worthy of our reverence. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." It repeats that several times. And I thought it was a really, really good message to go along with the pastor's message today. But the first part is, can you just play that first line real quick so they'll get the... So you kind of get the feel for this very gentle song. Come and fill our homes with your presence. You alone are worthy of reverence. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord. So it's a very gentle song. So we're going to sing this twice through. And again, you may or may not be familiar with it. It's a beautiful song. So if you will stand and we'll sing the Family Prayer Song. Come and fill our homes with your presence. You alone are worthy of our reverence. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord. Come and fill our homes with your presence. You alone are worthy of our reverence. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. So when looking for some special music this week, I was really kind of torn on what we needed to use, trying to find something to align with our message today, but also looking at a few different songs. And a really dear friend of mine mentioned this song. It's a song that we did way back at Easter. And he said that it really touched him. And I said, it's a great song. And I didn't realize at the time, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought, this is a song that I think we really, really need today. And it's a beautiful song called "The Truth Be Told." So I hope you enjoy it. My number one, you're supposed to have it all together. And when they ask how you doing, just smile and tell them never better. Line number two, everybody's mind is perfect except yours. So keep your messes and your wounds and your secrets safe behind closed doors. Truth be told, the truth is rare to be told. I say I'm fine, yeah I'm fine, oh I'm fine, hey I'm fine, but I'm not. I'm broke down, and when it's out of control, I say I'm under control, but it's not. And you know it. I don't know why it's so hard to admit it, but being honest is the only way to fix it. There's no failure, no fall, there's no sin you don't already know. So let the truth be told. need. Truth be told, the truth is very told. Oh, I'm the only one who says I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, oh, I'm fine, but I'm not. I'm broken, and when it's out of control, I say I'm under control, but it's not. And you know it. I don't know why it's so hard to admit it. When being honest is the only way to fix it. There's no fair in the fall, there's no sin, you know all that do. So let the truth be told. Can I really stand here unashamed, knowing that your love for me won't change? If not, if that's really true, then let the truth be told. I say I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, oh, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine, but I'm not. I'm broken, and when it's out of control, I say it's under control, but it's not. You know it. I don't know why it's so hard to admit it. When being honest is the only way to fix it. There's no fair in the fall, there's no sin, you will already know. I know. There's no fair in the fall, there's no sin, you will already know. So let the truth be told.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Well, you all know what a Chinese finger trap is, yes? A few months ago, I gave one to everyone who was here on that particular day, so naturally, like all of you summer free, you took it home and put it in a treasured spot in the home, right? Surely you didn't end up like mine did in the trash can. Anyway, I don't expect me to even explain to you how they work. Put your fingers in and you try and pull on them. You discover they're trapped. And the harder you pull, the more thoroughly you find yourself trapped, unless it's kind of like a cheaper like this, and you probably rip it out. Where's the illustration? So we'll just go with it. But the trap works by taking what is your natural inclination to pull harder when you're stuck, and it makes it work against you. In other words, when it comes to escaping from a Chinese finger trap, force isn't going to do the trick. So what does? Well, gentleness. As they say, gentleness, it's a hard word for us. In fact, gentleness, it's been a hard word for people to get their minds around for a long time. When we hear the word gentle, what kind of things immediately come to mind? Maybe things like homemade, like carrying a container of eggs, I might say my own eggs. Maybe running a marathon while toting a jar of mac and biscuit. Maybe that didn't come to mind for you, but that's just how my mind works. But because of this, we think gentleness it's all about being soft and easy, right? And since there are situations that certainly call for gentleness, again, like holding a baby, but other than that, we don't generally think of gentleness as a good thing. Right? We think the opposite of gentleness is strength. Thus, gentleness must be a synonym for weakness, and weakness isn't good. So in nearly all situations, we prefer strength to weakness, and so we shouldn't want gentleness, but the trouble is all this thinking about gentleness, it's almost entirely wrong. Gentleness and weakness are not synonyms at all. In fact, they're antonyms, they're opposites. Gentleness is strength. It's just not the kind of strength we normally think of when we think about strength. Gentleness doesn't have anything to do with being particularly soft or weak in our approach to something. Instead, it has everything to do with using the right strength for a given situation. They brought eggs, I brought eggs. Let's say I was carrying an egg. Now, yeah, like Nate, I have sufficient strength that if I wanted to, I could smash the egg in my hand. In fact, it wouldn't even really be very hard. Just squish and there it goes. Just like that. So that's why I brought a towel. You bring a towel, you wipe it up, and you take it straight to the cleaner. Sure, I don't slip like that. But let's say I didn't want to squish the egg. Let's say I wanted to manage to get the egg from the fridge to the pan so I could cook it for breakfast. Now, I don't want to break the egg until it's over the pan, right, ready for a perfectly over easy fried egg. got to be careful with that. So, assuming that's the case for the moment, what do I do when I pick up the A? Well, I'm going to pick it up gently. Now, does that mean I'm being weak with the A? Of course it doesn't. If I was weak with it, I might drop it on the way to the pen. Then I wouldn't be any better off than if I had squished it. I'm going to use instead just the right amount of strength for the situation. I'm going to wrap my hand around it firmly enough that I can move from point A to point B without anything happening to it, but not so firmly that I smash it along the way. That is gentleness. With this in mind, then, gentleness is something that we can and should bring to bear in every situation we're in. It's just that sometimes the strength in question is not our physical strength, but the strength of our words, maybe the strength of our emotions. So why am I thinking about gentleness this morning? Well, because in our journey through 1 Peter, the next stop we're going to make is all about gentleness. It doesn't look that way at first, but if you'll stick with me for a bit, you just may read this morning seeing what may be a familiar passage in an entirely new light. This morning finds us in the fifth part of our teaching series, Standing Firm. Over the course of these 9 weeks, we're looking at this. We're talking about how we can stand firm in our faith without sacrificing our gospel witness. And the reason for this is something that we've come back to again and again in this series. We live in the midst of a culture that is leaving behind its Christian worldview foundations with sometimes blinding speed. Everywhere we look, we are faced with yet another story about yet another segment of our culture embracing worldviews that are not simply non-Christian, they're anti-Christian. And the folks holding to these anti-Christian worldviews are showing themselves a whole lot more willing than they used to be forceful in their application than we've experienced really in our nation's history. We've seen believers walk through this before. Right? And in these situations, in the face of these rapid changes, it's easy for us to want to get angry, right? And respond to the ugliness we're receiving with the same force. But we've seen other believers walk through that kind of a road and respond in that kind of a way, and we've witnessed the damage that it's brought to the church. When we respond to worldly power with even more worldly power, we may hang on to the little corner of the society we've declared to be ours, but the kingdom won't advance. And if the kingdom isn't advancing, then we're not doing our job. What Peter offers us over the course of his letter is a better way. He started, we saw this a couple of weeks ago, by giving us a firm foundation to stand on. We lean hard on the hope that we have in Christ that's big enough to hold us. We demonstrate our reliance on this hope with a lifestyle that matches our confession, and we do this with the confidence that we're being built by this courage, along with all of our other brothers and sisters across the world in Christ, into someone even greater than we could be on our own. Once we're rooted in this foundation, then, we can start to talk about how we actually do it. How we actually stand firm. Peter said that before us last week in a way that was challenging and maybe more than just a little bit uncomfortable at times. It all hinges on a single but powerful idea. When the world strikes hard, we love back harder. So last week, as we started digging into our text together, I told you that Peter opened that particular section with a banner statement before then going on and applying that banner statement in some different situations as he continues to go through his letter. The banner statement was this. He said, "Dear friends, I urge you, as strangers and exiles, to abstain from sinful desires that wage war against the soul. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that when they slander you, not if, when they slander you as evildoers," not just weird or different or out of sorts, but evildoers, it's big words, "so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and will glorify God on the day he visits." We then went on last week to talk about applying this, how this Peter's application of this idea to our relationships with people who are in positions of authority over us. This morning, we're going to look at yet another application of that same idea. So if you got a copy of the scripture, can digital, analog, find your way with me to 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. Now, sometimes when you read something in Scripture, at first read, it seems to offer up an easy application. Our passage this morning here at the beginning of 1 Peter chapter 3 is one of those passages. We're just going to look at 7 verses, and 6 of them are all about wives submitting to their husbands. The application at first read seems obvious. Wives should submit to their husbands. Peter is writing about marriage, and that's so nice of him to take a break from everything else he's been talking about in order to give us this important message. Let's all then go home with a clear application on how to get marriage right. We'll all just submit, and everything's done, amen, with row. Except, Peter is not taking a break here from everything else that he's been writing about. In fact, he's staying right on topic. When you really spend time in the context of these words, all of a sudden we see that Peter's original audience, well, they would have heard something very different than the message that we're inclined to forget. I've written papers on this passage before. I've preached on it several times. I've preached this whole letter before. When I came to it this time, I saw something I've never seen before in Peter's words that still very much apply to us. We're just going to have to do a bit more critical thinking together to understand exactly how. That's plenty of stuff. Look at what Peter writes here with me. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. He says, "In the same way, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands," not anybody else's husbands, that was revolutionary for the culture. "Submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that even if some disobey the word, they may be won over without a word by the way their wives live, when they observe your pure, reverent lives. Don't let your beauty consist of outward things like elaborate hairstyles and wearing gold jewelry or fine clothes, but rather what is inside the heart, the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For in the past, the holy women who put their hope in God also adorned themselves in this way, submitting to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become her children when you do what is good and do not fear any intimidation. Husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker partner, showing their honor as co-heirs of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered." So, there's a lot going on there, rather obviously. And it would be very easy to get all caught up in just what we see here at first read and run completely off the rails with our approach to it. Certainly that's happened in the church's past, when churches and individuals have approached this passage. But let's take a pause button here for a minute and think through the situation of Peter's audience. Like I've told you before numerous times, context is king when interpreting the scriptures. A text cannot mean for us something that never meant for them. So what did Peter's audience hear when he was writing this? Well, we're very familiar today with the idea of the Christian couple. Right? In fact, a few couples in church today are couples because they met in church. I suspect we could certainly have a few. You raise your hands at that. Listen like that. Working at a church camp. But for a certain segment of our population, and for a very long time, the church has been one of the primary matchmaking bodies in the world. Right? Couples fall in love while serving Jesus. They get married and they have a long, happy life serving Jesus together. It makes for a great story that many of us know well. They've been living. Not so in Peter's day. Joining the church then was not a means of any kind of social advancement. It was fairly likely a means of social ostracism. The church had been around for more than about 30 years at this point anyway, so the idea of somebody growing up in the church and getting married and serving in the church, that didn't exist. Instead, members of the church generally, they ministered to the world around them, and they made the converts they could, or the Spirit made a convert, you understand the point. And they made them wherever they could do it. It was not at all unusual then for one member of a couple, often a wife because of the way the church treated women versus the way the culture treated women, to become a follower of Jesus, but not the other. Well, do that. If one spouse, again, especially the wife in a culture that generally viewed women and wives in particular as objects to be controlled by their husbands, became a follower of Jesus and the other didn't, how do you expect that was going to go? Think there might be a little bit of pressure, maybe some persecution to give up that faith in favor of what your spouse says you need to believe? I'd say there would have been about a certainty. Now imagine the fear in the mind of a wife going home to her still pagan husband to tell him that she'd become a follower of Jesus. The prevailing cultural wisdom then was that Christians in their Christianity, they were a subversive movement aimed at undermining everything that good people knew was right about how society should work. The Christians in their atheistic cannibalism, they ate the body and drank the blood of their Lord after all. They were weird. They were a threat to all the normal people held as good. It would have been one thing to have to kind of get close to one socially. You wanted to avoid that if you could. But to have to live under the same roof as one of them, that was a bridge too far for most people. Given that, don't you think new believers preparing to go home and share with their family for the first time their faith in Jesus might need a little bit of encouragement to stand firm without sacrificing their witness? He absolutely had to address this issue in this letter. Given what we talked about last week, though, and what we've talked about so far in the series, what kind of advice do you expect him to give? Well, just think again about that banner statement from 1 Peter 2:12. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and will glorify God on the day he visits. Well, what do you think counted as good works in that day? To a certain extent, this is the case for any culture. To a certain extent, it was towing the line of what counted as normal public behavior. That was good works. Now, this certainly didn't mean the believers would go and sign off on all the pagan rituals and practices of the world around them. Of course not. Just so they didn't offend their neighbors or family members in this case. They were different because of Christ. And they were going to look different because of that. But where the expectations of their culture actually lined up a bit with the life of Christ, they need to be fully on board with that. So if a newly Christian woman in this country went home and boldly announced to her husband that because of her new relationship with Jesus, she didn't have to do anything he said anymore or respect him and his paganism any longer, maybe she'd be able to stand firm in her faith. But was that kind of thing going to advance the kingdom? How likely do you think that pagan husband was going to be to ever show even the slightest interest in this new faith she had? Say the odds would be about 0. Or if this newly Christian woman, knowing her husband really wasn't going to be all that happy about her embrace of this faith, tried to make herself over according to the image of the world around her so as to essentially distract him from her faith, perhaps that would draw him to her in a way that he wouldn't have been otherwise, but it wouldn't have drawn him to Jesus, and thus she wouldn't have been doing herself any favor over the long haul. Or still, if a newly Christian husband went home and forcefully announced, as would have been his right culturally, that his still pagan wife and all their children who had no interest in this Jesus nonsense were now going to be baptized as his bride, and he was going to beat them until they came around if they didn't. Do you think her heart was ever going to make it to the right place? This is what Peter had in mind, culturally speaking, when he was writing what he did here. His goal here was not to sternly shake up finger at Christian wives of non-Christian husbands, or to tell them to roll over and play dead, or to reject all forms of cultural beauty, or to call their husbands Lord from this day on. He was saying that, look, you've got a hard road ahead. You need to behave in such a way that all of your husband's negative assumptions about this newfangled religious movement are proven false. If you can show him that your relationship with Jesus makes you an even better wife than your paganism did, then just maybe he'll embrace Jesus too and be made a better husband. Is this potentially going to make your life a little more inconvenient or complicated in the short term? Yeah, possibly. But the end result of doing this is going to be worth it. He was saying to husbands, look, if you go home and lord your faith over your family, over your wife, she's going to recoil from you and your faith. Instead, be gentle with her. Honor her. Show her the change that Christ has made in you, and by that, invite her to the same thing. In fact, because you're the husband, anything less is going to impair your relationship with God. And he was saying all of that in ways that were culturally significant to his audience. So yes, Peter says submit to you. Can't really take it off the page, it's right there. But not in the terms you might have been thinking at first. Does this mean that submission is irrelevant in marriage after all? No, Paul deals with that in Ephesians among Christian couples. That's another sermon. That wasn't Peter's point. Peter wanted to give Christian husbands and wives with unbelieving spouses counsel on how to stand firm in their faith without sacrificing their witness. Just like he's been doing all along for all of us. In fact, did you notice that he started his counsel to the wives and to the husbands with the same phrase? He said, in the same way. Well, that's like therefore. You gotta go back and see what it's there for. It forces us to ask the question, in the same way as what? In the same way that he wrote in the last section. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and will glorify God on the day that he visits. And why will they glorify God on the day that he visits? Because they become his followers too. Because you stood firm without sacrificing your gospel testimony in the process. For you were called to this, he said, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. Here's the thing to not miss. How we live our lives as followers of Jesus matters. It matters everywhere. It matters at work. It matters at school. It matters in public generally. But it matters at home too. If you are a follower of Jesus, it's really easy to get fixated on how you're behaving out where everybody can see it. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing to make sure that your public image matches your private confession. We should be doing that. But if we're not careful, it's really easy to put on a good show of righteousness out in public and then go home, let our hair down, and slip back into one of those desires of our former ignorance, as people call it. What Peter wanted his audience to know was that living out the character of Christ, it wasn't just something to be done in public, although it certainly does matter to do it there. It needed to happen at home as well. We are to live out the character of Christ everywhere we go, even at home. Live out the character of Christ even at home. And the way we do that is so often characterized by this gentleness. It is incredibly tempting, you know this, to just throw gentleness to the wind now. Right? The people who are there are the ones who've accepted us with all of our warts. And so we're comfortable letting those warts show. Well, having warts is part of life, but that doesn't mean you have to live through them. Rather than choosing gentleness or kindness to adjust things how we want them to be, we often choose force or anger, because that's easier. We just force it to be the way we want. We demean and we demand, because there's nobody to tell us not to do so. So whether we are deacons or Sunday school teachers or kids who've been raised to know better, home is often the place where we put down our faith and pick up our flesh. That's not how the kingdom is experienced. You very well may not be experiencing any kind of persecution or pushback because of your faith, as so many of Peter's audience were. But that doesn't make your full and consistent embrace of the character of Christ any less important. Live out the character of Christ, even at home. Gentleness, humility, kindness, submission. Those are all the things that will enable you to do it. Live out the character of Christ, even at home. What if all of our homes were places where faith was nurtured and encouraged? What if instead of places where the faith was abandoned and hated, they became the primary places in our lives where it was embraced and grown? If we're going to stand firm against a world pushing back, we need more of an enclave where we can be restored and built up for gospel action than the church can provide on its own. The home can be that place. Live out the character of Christ, even at home. This isn't always easy, but it is an investment you will never regret making. Live out the character of Christ, even at home. I can guarantee you this. You'll be glad that you did. Let me pray. Father, we're grateful for the example that you set for us in Christ. An example that was absolutely consistent at every point. Father, we're grateful for these words from the Apostle Peter. This reminder that how we live matters everywhere. Let us be a people who are known for our consistency, our consistent embrace of your character. Let us be known for that even in the places nobody knows about, nobody sees, nobody hears about, because it's behind closed doors. Help us live out the character of Christ in every single corner of our lives, so that we have the foundation we need to stand firm against the world pushing back without giving up our witness. We pray that you will make that our consistent embrace in this church, so that we can demonstrate to the world around us what it looks like. Yes, we do that in Jesus' name. Amen. As we wrap up today, good reminder that we got an opportunity to celebrate. Comes in the celebrate card. It's one you know about. We walk with him everywhere we go, and I can't think of a more appropriate one. Let's really hit the nail on the head here. That we make our declaration, our prayer, that we will walk consistently everywhere we go. So would you stand and sing that as Wesley? army no matter where we are. So we live like his army no matter where we are. Let me pray for you. We're going to head out of here. We're going to take just a minute. We'll start the annual conference here in just a second. So if you are ready to go, need to go, hit the road, you're going to stay for the annual conference, stay for that. We'll get started here in just a minute with that. Let me pray for you. God, we are grateful for your words, for this reminder of how important embracing your character in every facet of our lives is. Help us do that to your glory, to our joy, so that the world can see just exactly who you are. We ask that in Jesus' name.